name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is the 153rd day since the Hamas attacks on South Israel. Thank you for all who've sent notes or who watch these daily updates. They're not meant to be a comprehensive analysis. I'd encourage you to go to our website at Churches for Middle East Peace to see our statements. I've been doing these videos daily. I apologize that as days go on, I'm increasingly undone. The encouragement is that we would continue to go before God, that we would not be silent, that I'm grateful many of you join us in our weekly prayer on Wednesdays. Today's the day where we do a live update every Thursday. And then I try to do updates. Well, I've done a video update every day since October 7th. So today, Thursday, March 7th, tonight is the State of the Union. Many of you may be watching it or have watched it by the time you see this. The United States is announcing that they have a plan. President Biden will say the US is going to build a port on the Gaza shore for large-scale aid delivery in the next few weeks to allow delivery of humanitarian aid on a large scale. We're not waiting on the Israelis. This is a moment for American leadership. That's a senior official from the White House said today, reflecting growing frustration of what's seen in Washington as Israeli obstruction of road deliveries on a substantial scale. The port will be built by the U.S. military engineers operating from ships off of the Gaza coast, who will not need to step ashore, according to U.S. officials. Aid deliveries will be shipped from the port of Larnaca in Cyprus, which will become the main relief hub. So this is the answer to what they were calling the Cyprus marine route. And you might recall that a few days ago, there was the question of, but where would the ships land? And so this is answering that question. I would say, and we've been saying, at Churches for Middle East Peace, aid is not the fundamental issue. People are starving because there's a blockade on Gaza, and there's been an ongoing campaign that has killed indiscriminately tens of thousands of civilians in Gaza. There must be a comprehensive ceasefire, and we need immediate and adequate humanitarian aid. But once there is a ceasefire, then there will be humanitarian access. So it still feels like, President Biden saying that aid, the idea that this is a humanitarian crisis and that aid is the issue is ignoring the fact that Israel's war against Hamas is killing children, and that the people who are being most affected are civilians, and that the death toll, it's exorbitant. So that is significant news about the port that the U.S. will be building. Yet again, it seems like a finger in the dike and not addressing the major issues. The U.S., this is a Washington Post report, has made more than 100 weapons sales to Israel, including thousands of bombs, since the war began in Gaza. But deliveries escaped congressional oversight because each transaction was under the dollar amount requiring approval. The Washington Post reported that administrative officials informed Congress of the 100 foreign military sales to Israel in a classified briefing. That is also big news. So we're hearing the Biden administration say we care about this humanitarian crisis while we send the weapons that are being used that perpetrate it. Well done, President Biden. 2 days ago at the United Nations, according to Reuters, the U.S. Revised language in one of their draft UN Security Council resolutions to back an immediate ceasefire that would be roughly 6 weeks in Gaza, together with the release of all hostages. This is according to a text seen by Reuters. The third revision of the text, first proposed by the U.S. 2 weeks ago, reflects the blunt remarks that Vice President Kamala Harris gave over the weekend. The initial U.S. draft had shown support for a temporary ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. My understanding is that there has not been movement on that at the UN. I could verify that in future updates. Children are paying the highest price of the war in Gaza. We've been talking about this. Today, Sojourners, the Christian magazine, came out with an article declaring that Gaza is the most dangerous place in the world to give birth, citing inhumane birthing conditions. It's reported that there's been a 300% rise in miscarriages in Gaza because of the lack of medical care, malnutrition, and extreme stress, and injury due to the violence between Israeli forces and Hamas. The World Health Organization said yesterday that its officials had visited the Shifa hospital where the treatment of 50 children who are suffering from severe acute malnutrition. In the Kamal Adwan Hospital, in the past week, 10 children have died from hunger and dehydration in recent days. I had the number a few days ago and it was 4 children, and now that number is 10. And one of the things I had dinner tonight with a woman who leads a multi-million-dollar development organization, and they do work around the world. And she was talking about hunger. And once you start to see people dying and children dying of starvation and dying of hunger and dehydration, it means that food aid is too late. That's what she said to me tonight. They say the rate of 15% of wasting among children under the age of 2 in northern Gaza suggests serious and rapid decline. And such a decline in a population's nutritional status in 3 months is unprecedented globally. Turkey's Red Crescent is sending its biggest aid shipment yet into Gaza via Egypt, carrying about 3,000 tons of food, medicine, and equipment, leaving for the Egyptian port of Al Arish. That happened today. And Reuters reports that Turkey's ambassador to Cairo said on social media that this aid, which will be delivered to Gaza with the support and cooperation of the Egyptian Red Crescent, will keep the hopes of Palestinians alive on the eve of Ramadan. Again, that begins on March 10th. It's largely been collected through donations, and it will ship reportedly in 2 different trips. In the Red Sea, we've been keeping track of the attacks by the Houthis from Yemen. True Confidence owners, this is the name of a ship. They reported that 3 of their crew members were killed in an attack on a ship that was near Yemen. That's a dry bulk carrier. They were killed in a missile attack off Yemen on Wednesday. The owners and managers of the ship confirmed this in a statement today. 2 other members sustained serious injuries. That's according to Reuters. The ship's drifting away from land and salvage arrangements are being made. I'm afraid I didn't write down the details of, if that was a counterattack or if that came from the Houthis. I just wrote down that those deaths were just reported. I was asked in the daily briefing that I had last week, what was the determination by the International Court of Justice? They heard several days of opinions about the question of the legality of the occupation and what was their decisions. So those hearings began about the occupation in the ICJ on February 19th. The question was brought forth by the General Assembly of the United Nations requesting advisory opinion. 52 countries presented their opinions on the issue, and the vast majority of states that made oral presentations expressed their opinion that the occupation itself was illegal and urged the ICJ court to declare it as such. On the other hand, the United States spoke in opposition, expressing the opinion that the court should take into consideration the security problems of Israel and that they should refrain from ordering an end to the occupation. Hungary urged the court to refrain from giving any opinion, declaring that the very involvement of the ICJ was problematic, that it lacked jurisdiction to offer any opinion on the question, which should be left to international negotiations. It's estimated that the court will take a few months before it renders its decision, but whatever it is, the issue would then be left to the different countries as to the extent that they're willing to implement that decision or whatever the recommendations of the court are in its advisory opinion. I wanted to close with some words that last night touched my heart, and these days, any encouraging word in the midst of these moments, is welcome. A colleague of mine at CMEP shared these with me. She is my partner in these videos, and I ask her all the time, even when she had COVID. We both had COVID. I had COVID in December. She had COVID a couple weeks ago, and we both are like, we're not going to not do the video. Like, there's one thing we can do. We're gonna do these updates no matter what. Traveling around the world, and she's been so faithful. She's been with me every day the past 153 days that we've made these updates, for different locations. And she sent me these words, and I felt like they were just an encouragement from God. So might they be an encouragement to you? I don't know if you know, C.S. Lewis and the story of Aslan in C.S. Lewis's writings, but Aslan is the story of a lion from the Chronicles of Narnia, representing the image of God. And she wrote me this. She said, whenever I hear courage, I'm reminded of this from C.S. Lewis's Voyage of the Dawn Treader from the Chronicles of Narnia. This is a quote. But no one except Lucy knew that as it circled the mast, it had whispered to her, courage, dear heart. And the voice she felt sure was Aslan's. And with the voice, a delicious smell breathed in her face. And she continued and she said, I always think of this, and then I think of the beauty of Christ. How when he comes close to us and reminds us to have courage, it is with a sweet breath, if we can notice it. Christ is with you, and he is sweet, and his sweetness is eternal. Praise be to God.